That's funny, folks. I didn't unmute myself when I tried to do the intro. Not off to a great start on this one. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is Jamie Hawk, co-founder, of Altitude Operations in Phoenix. They specialize in putting systems and processes in place for your business. They are going to find where you're bottlenecked. They have an extensive knowledge of technologies available to assist your business, no matter you're looking for a CRM, you need something to automate a task. They're going to help you look at your business and figure out where you can save time so that you have the time to put into your business instead of just slaving away for it and never the ability to move it forward in a positive direction. That being said, what is Floor Academy? We are your weekly podcast in the flooring industry to discuss the business side of things. Knowing the standards, knowing how to install, all great. Let's learn how to sell. Let's learn how to look at our numbers, manage people, build leadership, community, culture in our business. Those are all the things we talk about here weekly, and I want to help you grow your business so that you actually own an asset as opposed to owning a job. There's like 3.5 years of content now. God, that's a lot. I can't even believe it. Thank you for the support. Seriously, everyone that's been around that long. It blows my mind. That's what we do. There's, find it on your favorite listening platform. Go back, listen, tons of episodes on a variety of topics. I'm going to stop now because no one really wants to hear from me. You're all here for the guest, and I know that. So, Jamie, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that intro. So, like you said, my name's Jamie. I am the co-founder and CEO of Altitude Operations. And he said he summarized it great. So basically what we do is we go into businesses and we just try to figure out how to make you more optimal. So who do we need to hire? What automations do you need? Where are your bottlenecks? Where are the things that are keeping you up at night? And how do we solve for those? And so that's basically what we do. And so we jump on the phone with business owners in all industries, trying to figure out what keeps them up at night, what those bottlenecks are, and we figure out a way to streamline their processes and streamline everything that they're doing so they can be more efficient, their team's more efficient, communications at an all-time high, projects are, on track and all the things. So
we conversed before we set up this episode, and then I peeked around on your website today to get some copy made up. You started as a VA. So I was able to read it, but you tell me, like, the journey from VA to I can now look at all of these different things and optimize them for you. Like, how did that connection happen? What was that journey like, and why is that what you chose to do?
Yeah, so I guess previous to me being a VA, I had always been a project manager, had always been in operations in big corporations, became a stay-at-home mom for 2 years, and I was really looking for something. And so I was talking to my husband's aunt, and I was like, hey, I need something to work from home. You've always worked from home. How do you do it? So she kind of set me on this path to be a VA. It was admin work. It was stuff that I had been doing, had done my whole, working career. And I slowly got into project management, which I had done prior to being a VA as well and staying home with my kid. And then I hired some business coaches, and they were like, pump the brakes. You're doing way more than a project manager should be doing. You should be, charging more, all the things. We need to really package this in a way that actually tells what you're doing and the value that your company brings to other businesses. And so we kind of went on this route of what do you do and how do you do it? And, doing a lot of research of what does that mean? What does that look like? What can people wrap their head around of what your title would be and what types of services do you offer? And so it was really the help of my coaches at the time that I had. And it was already what I was doing for companies, and it just was on a higher level at this point. So I was acting as a VA, but I was really acting as, an operations consultant to them a lot of the time. And so I just now pivoted my business to where I'm charging that way versus charging as a VA.
Okay. And I'm assuming as the experience of being a VA, that's where a lot of the exposure to the different technologies came from, because one company works on this system, another one's on this system, and you're constantly in and out trying to, give this person their 20 minutes and this person their 20 minutes, and
yeah,
got to keep it all straight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is you see so many efficiencies. Like, one company's really got their stuff together, they're efficient, they're running, and then you go to this next company and they're doing, less money, but they're not understanding why, and they're trying to figure it out. And it's like, it's typically an operations issue at that point because they're just so inefficient that it's just hard to get things going. So yeah, I would say learned a lot about softwares in that time, learned a lot about different industries and a lot working for all these different companies and being able to see the dirty laundry in them for sure.
So I think my audience here is generally going to be a contractor. There's our retailers and manufacturers that listen, but generally speaking, it's made for the contractor audience. And I think within flooring, we get caught up and we think things are so easy, right? It's about going and putting the flooring in or the shower in. And so what do I need technology for? And I'll be the first to tell you that one of the best things I did, and it happened on accident, was I got a scheduling software for the podcast. And so just being able to send somebody a link to a website and say, look, I don't know what your schedule looks like. Here's my calendar. You pick something that works for you, has been a godsend to get these things scheduled efficiently and effectively, and then know that it automatically blocks out the time for me and for them, sends them the link. It's all taken care of. There's notes in there. I have contact info. I don't have to track it down on 8,000 sheets of paper. But there's little things like that I think get missed in the flooring industry. So what kind of ways have you seen scheduling software look like? Because somebody could put this on their website and like I added it and there's a link so that I can schedule like visits to my showroom because it's by appointment only. It's not open. And so clients can go on the flooring website and do that. And that makes it super easy. But where else could we implement a software like that within our business?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways. If you have a team, anybody who works for you, any vendors, right? It's great. That's how I use it. If I work with anybody, and I always put a little note in there. Some people feel like it's impersonal, which is the hard part, and that's kind of where you have to play with it. But I would definitely say any meetings you're getting on, you should be using that software. You and I, before we started taping, we talked about anytime you're going to send somebody a date and a time that you can meet with them, really that should be replaced by a link. And so getting with employees, getting with different contractors, vendors, anything like that you're working with should always be that. But there's a bunch of different software. So if a calendar, obviously that type of software doesn't seem appealing to you and you're like, I don't know how I would use that. There's definitely a lot of softwares kind of just like that calendar one that it's just a simple little thing that you can do, but can make the greatest impact for your client experience, for your experience. I think a lot of times we look at these tools on saving yourself money and time and all this stuff, but really it's to save them time, and it's really about your customer experience, right? Like how great that I was able to just schedule and not think about it until I came today versus you and I going back 3, 4, 5 times trying to find a time. So I think it's really important because it just doesn't encompass what it does for you, but what it does for people working for you and with you.
Correct. It saves a lot of phone calls back and forth, right? It's going to be easier to get you on the phone to discuss when we want to have a meeting, and we can both sit down and we look at our calendars and well, now I've been stuck on the phone with you for 15 minutes. And as an owner operator, which a lot of the audience is, that's 15 minutes that a project isn't getting completed. And then now a potential client's going to call. There's a 30-minute phone call, and then your wife calls, and there's 15 minutes. And so now I've lost an hour out of an 8-hour day on the phone, not working because I can't use the tools. I can't bang and hammer away, whatever it is that I need to do. And now what do? Do I cheat the client out of the hour? Do I make it up and go longer on what I scheduled to be an 8-hour workday? And so there's little benefits like that I found where you think it's not going to save you time, but it does. By eliminating that phone call, it makes it a lot easier. Plus, if the client's using the software correctly, they can go and reschedule. And then it just updates the calendar and sends you a notification like, hey, this appointment got moved from here to here. And that's helped me out instead of having to get a phone call and rebook and do all these things. It also can give me a reminder the day before, and I can send a text message. Hey, are we still on? Right. And can you automate that? Probably. Do I have it set up in the system I have? No. It's probably possible, but Just not there yet. I'm not all the way on it yet, but it's definitely been a huge time savings for me, frustration saving. And I want to say, I think Calendly's probably the popular one. And I don't know what that is offhand, but I want to guess that for like a personal single user, it's probably only like $15 a month on a annual basis or something.
Yeah. It's definitely not, it's really inexpensive for the time that it saves you. And I want to also say, to your point, it's okay for it to be a journey. It's okay for it to not be everything is in place day one, right? You start using the Calendly link and then you're like, oh, it would be really cool if it could do this. And then you start to look at, can it do this? And so I think it's really important for people to know that you don't have to make the leap off the deep end day one, and nor should you. If your business or you have never worked in technology in these ways, it's probably not in your best interest to just dive headfirst into it. It's really about picking and choosing the things, the bottlenecks in your business, and how can we solve for these? How can tech solve for these? And then the rest of the business, it kind of just can come as you go.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great advice, right? It's you don't have to jump in the deep end and drown. We can work up to it and be comfortable. So besides scheduling software and as it goes, right, you can get packages that do multiple things, but usually people are looking at having some kind of scheduling software. Then there's probably some kind of customer resource manager. And so when we're looking at a CRM, what are some things that you found are the most effective features in a customer resource manager, customer relationship manager, whatever you want to call them?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple. One, being able to communicate with your team, or just being able to keep notes, right? Like if there's no way to keep notes on calls or anything like that, then your relationship manager that you're using is just a bunch of names and it's not really giving you any of the information you need about them. If you can create tasks, I know that that's one thing that we get a lot especially when we get into sales teams versus it just being one person selling. If you have something that's like, I need to follow up with this person, or I need to send them an email, or I need to send them this after the call because they asked for our bios or they asked for our website, just making sure that you can set tasks for certain things, but being able to track how much money, with opportunities, referral sources is really important. I always tell people before they start on any types of softwares is making sure that it can integrate with others. So a lot of times what people do when they're starting on this path is they'll just pick a random software and they start running with it. They don't really know why. Nobody really told them. They just did some research, a Google research, and found one. But they don't really look at how it affects the rest of their business. So if they're using an invoicing software, how does that connect to your CRM? Can you make those connect? You absolutely can. You just have to make sure that you're picking the right software. So I think it is really important that you pick the right things and make a list of things you want, right? If I'm going for a CRM, I probably know some things I want to be able to do with it. And so going to Google and say, get me a CRM that does this, this, and this. Tech is great. Use tech to find tech. It's a great resource and definitely something Google's great with that. But definitely creating a list of things that you want to see in your software and then finding the right software is really important for sure.
Okay. And so being able to track things in this, I know, look, I have a bunch of manila folders. Invoices get printed out because I just use a spreadsheet and then I make some notes on it and it goes in a manila folder for the proper month of the year. And then at some point during the month, I scan it, goes off to the bookkeeper. She takes care of all that stuff. But if I had a CRM, I could probably have it upload that actually kept track of invoicing stuff. Like I could upload it to QuickBooks, send it off to her. It'd be like a few less steps for me. Another thing is I think that contractors miss is at one point I was manually entering zip codes that I worked in. I was putting the addresses into a Google map and you can pin everywhere that you were. And I think I did that with like my first year and a half of jobs. And I found a couple of areas where I heavily was concentrated. And then you can start seeing where you work. And if you wanted to start buying marketing and advertising, I'm not going to go focus it in areas that I'm not going. And so that's one thing that I think a CRM would help you track. What are some other like minute details that you can pull out of them to really start knowing your client base and pinpoint the details that'll help you move your business forward in a productive way, as opposed to just throwing darts at a map and hoping something lands.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that you said that you track zip codes and stuff. I think that it's important that you do that. And it's also good if that can carry on into some type of project management tool. Like if you're using your CRM, you're tracking that, then it's hard to kind of tell where you're at throughout the day. I know that that's a lot of contractors. They're like, if I knew I was going to be out there on that day, I could have scheduled another job out there, or I could have done something else out there. But I drove an hour and I got to go back there next week because I didn't realize I had two jobs in the same area. And so I think tracking zip codes is really important in addresses, and having a CRM that does that for you. Then you can kind of, where are all my jobs at, making sure that you're scheduling them. You're not going from one side of town to the other all day and it allows you to be a little bit more strategic with what you're doing in your day, I think, as well. If you're tracking, the more information you can track, the better you can strategize, marketing, sales, all of that kind of stuff. And that all really comes down to the software you use, because again, we're not going to do it manually. We don't have time to do that. So finding the software that's actually going to track that information for you and keep it forever, there's nothing like it. You got to have it.
Okay. So for like larger firms, you're saying there's probably software out there that can look at, you have 5 upcoming jobs, 10 upcoming jobs. They're all located here. And so it's probably better for team A to be able to go from this job to this job. They only have to move the trailer. They could drop it off the night before. That way they don't have to tow it. We're saving on gas. They could bring materials for both projects out at the same time. And then this team can go over here and, maybe there's a repair, but there's an estimate at the same time in these areas. And so now I can go as the owner, if I have time, I could go do the estimate, and then I can do this quick repair. Now we've knocked out all these tasks. Whereas before it was, well, it's just this came in and you do this and you do that. Okay. So I like it. The tools are available when you have the time to invest in them and then let the data come back out at you in a different way. But when it comes in randomly and it's just on sheets of paper or spreadsheets, I can't do anything with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you said earlier, a lot of these softwares aren't very expensive. There's obviously expensive ones, right? Like we run into that everywhere. There's expensive silverware, not expensive silverware. Like it's the same thing, but they have the same purpose. I think same thing goes with software. You can have really, really, really expensive software that does the exact same as like not expensive software. So I would say I think a lot of times people see, oh my gosh, it's $200 a month. It must do so much more than this $20 a month one. Mm-hmm. And in reality, it's not that. And a lot of times it has features that you aren't going to use. And that's where we see people get caught up. So like, what if, I feel like I need the best of the best. And sometimes it's just start basic, we're talking 10, $15 a month for a software that could do all of this. So I would definitely give that tip. Don't go with the high end stuff, especially if you've never worked with software. Just get your feet wet with things that are less expensive.
I agree. You don't always have to start off with the best. I think there's probably a lot of people listening that went out and probably bought some tools from Harbor Freight or the really cheap stuff from a box store to get going. And, you upgrade over the years. So you can start out with something. And look, I get upgrading systems is horrendously hard when there's a lot of data to like export and re-import. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that's what you got to do. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they've changed accounting systems 3 or 4 times over like 15 years. And I can only imagine that moving accounting after like 5 years over to a new system is just going to be an absolute nightmare, because that import's not going to go correctly. So there's going to be somebody's going to have to fix some stuff. But look, it can be done. So you can grow, you can change. And I think that's great advice. Don't get hung up on, I have to have the best out the gate. You don't generally get a Porsche for your first car. You get some beater from mom or dad, and you got to replace it as you go. What else we have? So we can get some scheduling software. We can start working with tracking client information. What about CRMs are great, and I really do need to implement one. I think a lot of businesses in contracting would gain from it. So what about automations? We can what types of things could we automate from a CRM that would help us save a lot of time and put our business in a more positive light?
Yeah, I would say creating invoices. So once you write in your CRM, you're tracking all these new opportunities. And once you win one, Now there's a slew of things you have to do, right? Like that's the hardest part is once we win business, there's probably 30 things we need to get done within the next 48 hours. We need to send them an invoice, contracts, timelines. There's a lot of things that we have to keep track of. So if you have a CRM and you're looking to get automations, you can have something that automatically sends invoices. Once you send one, you hit one on something, it should be able to pool how much did you estimate that job for, who is that job for, and all of that information, and then send them off an invoice and a contract automatically. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that. Maybe there's a questionnaire that you need filled out. I know for us, we have a questionnaire that we send all new clients. So right when we hit that we want a deal in our CRM, it automatically sends them a questionnaire, invoice, all of that kind of stuff. So they have that information, and there was nothing we needed to do. I just can sit back, win the deal, celebrate a little bit, be excited, and just know that I'm going to have a call scheduled with them. I'm going to have, all of their information that I need from them before I even jump on a call, but I didn't have to do anything for it. So there's a lot of things you can do, and that's pretty advanced. But if you look at just small things you can do, just being able to track people, right? Like with automations, there's a lot that you can do and a lot that you can unfold there. But it's all about starting simple and depend on what software you use too.
Well, okay. So how about reviews, right? I think a lot of people struggle to ask for the review at the end of a project.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a struggle one. So same thing. Once you're done with the project, once you've closed out a deal, when you're using some sort of software, it can trigger an email to them that says, "Hey, can you fill out this or fill out a form or whatever type of review you're trying to get from them?" And then you can put them in. It automatically put them in a sequence. So if they don't reply to your email and you didn't get it, it'll send them another one. And if they don't do it, it'll send them another one. And then maybe at that point we say, "Okay, we're not going to ask anymore." But yeah, definitely, there's lots of softwares to help you get a lot of information and using those automations. It's crazy the amount of time that we save with automations. I think my business partner put on his LinkedIn that we used like 50,000 automations in the last like 3 months or something like that.
Wow.
We use a ton of it. Anything that comes in and out of the business typically is automations. And one thing it helps us with is our customer service, right? Like I don't have to spend my time sending them an invoice or sending them a questionnaire. They just get that. And now I can be a better person on the phone with them. I have more time to spend doing the things that actually matter and not the things that can be automated by a tool.
Well, okay. So now we're marking it complete. It automatically sent out an invoice to them. So now they can say, okay, hey, I got to get paid. And I'm sure if they don't get paid, it's automated to say, hey, you didn't pay me, pay me. You're asking for that review, which, yeah, great. You closed out the job. You asked for it in person. They're not going to do it. Now here's the gentle reminder from the email. Maybe step 2 is sending it to them on the, a text message. And then again, after that, we ask a third time an email again, but it's giving them the links, right? Everything's going to be contained right there. Whereas when I ask in person, I'm like, hey, can you go on Google and leave me a review? Well, where do I go? Well, you got to go here and here. Like, the easier it can be. And I think that's where the benefit of this technology comes in, is when it's one click away. Now people are more likely to complete it when you ask, as opposed to here's the 5 steps, right? Like I just want to click, I want to type, and I want to move on. And then the review's there. They're super happy. Much easier experience instead of, well, you got to go on Google and type in my business name and then click the little review button. And then, you probably have to click somewhere else and then you can start typing and then you have to click submit. I don't have time for that. They don't have time for that. Let alone it's, they didn't pay, it's sending them reminders. It's now that you have some kind of invoicing software going, you're going to be able to track all of that data better. So now it'll tell you how quickly you can close things out, get paid on them. Probably if you have a fancy enough software, I'm going to assume that you can put in your hours and it can start giving you margins on, how effectively the project went and what sort of power does that information give you when you actually know what's going on with how your money's operating and how your crews are operating.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people are already doing this, and if they're not, then obviously we should start. But a lot of people are probably already doing this by some sort of tool, spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, Google Sheets, like that's. I would say probably a lot of business owners that we run into are doing this to some extent, but it's just not sustainable. That's where the tools really come in. It's not that we're incapable of doing these things on our own. We're just incapable of doing all of these things on our own. And I think that's the important piece to remember is, getting a software just really helps you stay consistent. It helps your business. It helps you, but we just can't do it all the time, and that's okay. And that's really what tech is for. So yeah, tech is really powerful. And I think that anytime you can find a use for it in your business and find how to automate it and really utilize it, it's good education. It's always going to be worth your time to really do this, because every day, every year that goes by that you don't do stuff like this, although it's 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes every day, it's 30 minutes every day. It's, that stuff adds up. You put the dollar amount to your time and there's your software. You could have paid for the software and then gained some back. So
yes,
it's
totally agree. I like the consistency part that you're talking about. So the software makes it easier for you to be consistent because it's going to take you less time to do the task. If you open up a spreadsheet and you're having to track, well, first you got to get your crews to give you, their times on a timely basis, right? And so now you're chasing them down on a Friday afternoon, trying to get them figured out, how many hours did you have this week? What job, how many did you have for the Joneses and how many did you have over here for the Smiths? And then now I got to go and open up the different spreadsheets. I got to put all the time in. I got to calculate it out. Once again, the tool is there to say, hopefully it's some app that tracks time, right? We can get the app that tracks time. It'll export the information over to your other app and it'll calculate out, okay, this goes here and this goes here, this goes here. Here's the numbers, right? And now you're just clicking buttons and getting reports as opposed to having to go in, manually enter all the data or pay somebody to manually enter all this data. And then you have to review it at a later date. It's going to be readily available. And so there's the ability to do these things, and the fact that we don't, I think, is mind blowing. I'm throw myself under that bus. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit that I look at it and I'm like, oh, I don't want to spend the $20. I don't want to spend the $200 a month. But how much would I get back out of that by being able to more effectively communicate with clients, manage them, and where would I be able to invest my time after that fact? Am I going to be able to go do more marketing? Am I going to be able to get in front of more people to try and close more deals? And so how have you seen, through the businesses you've helped, how have you seen them implementing these things really free them up and allow them to grow?
Yeah, well, I would say one big way is because they're able to track their projects a lot better. A lot of times they thought they were filled up. They're like, we don't have time. We got to push this off. We got to push this off. We can't take this job. We can't take that job because we're just so chaotic. But it's really because they just didn't have the eyes on their business they needed. So by implementing some of these tools that we've talked about, they're able to see, okay, we actually can move up those projects that we had told that we couldn't do till May. We actually can do those in March because we're not as busy as we thought we were, because they have things. They're not just working off of a spreadsheet and random timelines, right? There's just more eyes, and you can kind of go on that 30,000 foot view and look at your business and see everything that's happening. So I would say that's how it frees them up, is that they're able to just see timelines a lot better. So they're able to take jobs on a lot quicker, but just not having to think about things, right? Automations, obviously, that helps your business. Obviously, it helps if, you have the software crunching the numbers and stuff for you. But really where I think it makes the big difference is it just frees up brain space. And freeing up that brain space and not waking up at 2 a.m, freaked out because this invoice or that invoice or didn't get paid. And I got to make sure I send that email to get paid for that job I did a month ago. That stuff keeps us up at night. And I think that we don't realize that as business owners. Like, I have woken up in the middle of the night in cold sweats many times, like, oh my gosh, did I do that? And, or did I not do that? Or what happened? And I think that softwares and automations help me. I didn't have to do that. It's already taken care of for me. It's not my job anymore to do that. And I think that's really where it frees up. And yes, it's going to free up your time, but really your mental capacity will become a lot greater because you're not trying to remember everything all the time.
I think that's the key. We got enough to think about, especially once again for the owner operators out there that are trying to grow, trying to do things, and you're trying to focus on getting an install done. I know having the mental capacity to be able to make it through a day and focus on this, and then know that I have to go to an estimate, and then I need to get the one that's been the email I got about the one that's accepted, and then remember to set a reminder to order the materials the next day and go get a deposit check. And you got enough to keep track of. So the easier that you can make it, the more efficiently you're going to be able to run, so that I can go focus on the thing that I really need to do. And I think that's what you're saying the software is going to help us do, is focus on what we're good at, and it's going to handle a lot of the rest of what's going on in our business. And it's not that it doesn't still take time and you have to peek at it, but you can do it all more effectively, more efficiently. Same word. Yeah. That's good, Kyle. Proud of you, buddy. Effectively and efficiently. No, but you can.
Great. I love it. I love it. And I think another big perk, what we've seen the biggest difference is these cloud-based softwares and programs and stuff we have now. When you're running off of Excel spreadsheets that are on your computer at home, you're out on the field and you don't have that information with you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, this person calls you and you're like, oh, I got to get back to you. So instead of taking that call and spending 2 minutes answering somebody's question, you have to call them back at a later time because you didn't have that information with you. So I think that's another important thing as far as softwares and stuff goes. These cloud-based softwares that you can access from anywhere on any device, teammates, anybody that you're working with, vendors, can all see what you want them to see. You can lock it down. I think is also really important because you just have all your information with you at all times.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. I think being able to have multiple people, if needed, be able to see it all in real time is going to help, as opposed to, well, I don't know, like I'm not at the office right now and the job board's not in front of me. I can't tell you, Johnny, that you should go do this project because you finished this one early. Like I have no idea. I'll, either drive back to if it was all updated into a calendar, then you could look at it and find something. Or like you said, you can open the app or go log into the website and it's going to pull it up and instantly tell you. So I think that's great advice of being able to make it the communication amongst colleagues more effective. That's great. Okay, I'm going to interrupt us for 1 second here, and then we'll jump back into it.
Right.
Not all foam boards have the high performance that GoBoard does. Johns Manville has been producing rigid foam boards for decades for commercial roofs. What does this mean for flooring and shower applications if they aren't exposed to the same harsh elements that a roof is? If it's good enough for a commercial roof, then it's even better for your flooring, countertop, or shower project, especially at a reasonable price. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. If you're looking for a powerful and convenient solution to streamline your flooring estimates, look no further than our cloud-based virtual estimating software. With this innovative tool, you'll be able to create detailed and accurate estimates in real time, right from the job site or your office. Collaborate with your team, manage projects, and access all the information you need to make informed decisions all in one place. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this software will help you get ahead in the flooring industry. Try it today and see the difference Virtual Estimates Now can make. Check out the link in the show notes to demo the program or visit estimates.flooracademypod.com. Okay, Jamie. Can we get a little personal? Can we talk about how maybe
yeah, let's do it.
Automations and didn't go so well for you? Like they did, and it worked, but it quickly got out of hand is kind of the story you were telling me. And now we've reevaluated and changed directions. But I think this is a story that contractors can kind of relate to. So what happened? You started Altitude Operations. Mm-hmm. And let's walk through kind of what you've realized happened and where we are now, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So started Altitude Operations we've had the business for a long time. We've gone through a couple of rebrands, but husband quit his job about 9 months ago to come into the business. We were full force in. We were going for it. We're like, we're going to get a team. This is where we're going to go. We grew our business about 10 times the amount it was in about 10 months, which was great. Had a large team. Everything was great. And then until it wasn't anymore. I think that I'm trying to think of what questions you specifically want me to talk about with this and what you think would be best for your audience.
I just think the journey itself, the real,
Yeah.
any realizations you had within it, right? And I'll pull questions out. That's what I do, right? That's why I get to be on this side of the microphone. I don't have to think so hard. I get to listen. I'll pull some questions out. I
I'm going to put
guarantee
you
it.
to work today. Come on now.
No, that's fine. So I think what I want to know is like what happened, what realizations did you come to, right? Because in our conversation to set this up, you had admitted things just got out of control, which is, I hate to say it, it's kind of funny that the company that looks to be able to process things and put them in order was the one saying, hey, like my ship's on fire over here. And I didn't even, you finally realized it. So what did that look like? What happened in that scaling that was missed? How did it all kind of come about?
Yeah, I love that. That's a great setup for it. So I think for us, what happened is our vision for the company got off really quick. We knew we had this goal, we had this vision for the company, and as it got bigger and bigger and we hired more people, our vision quickly became not the vision anymore for the company. I think that it's funny, since then I read a quote, or I was listening to a podcast that said that one of the number one reasons why companies fail is because they scale too fast. And, typically we see companies fail, or we think when companies fail is cash flow sucks. They can't find clients, they can't find people to work for them and all these things. But you never really hear, oh, scaling too fast, that's really a thing. And so for us, we realized that. We realized, one, the vision of the company was off, where we were no longer happy. We were managing a bunch of people that didn't share the same vision, which is 100% the fault of us because we didn't portray the vision in the way that we should have. But yeah, I think for us, it was more, we want to give high level service, right? I think we all do. We all want that. But as we get busier and as we scale and as we grow, we lose our hands in different parts of the business. And it's easy to do that. It's easy. I hired this person. They're really good at what they do. I'm going to just let them do that and stay there. And I'm going to go do something else. And I'm going to stay in this zone of genius. And I think it's easy to do that as business owners. We're busy. It's hard to manage and also deliver and also do all these things that we're doing. And so I think for us, it was, our vision had just gotten so far off the track of where we wanted it to go. And it just got to the point where we had to kind of pull back the reins and say, we've got to start from zero and kind of build this up to a place where we actually want it to go.
Okay. I think that's got to be a really tough decision. You said you brought people on, you have a team, and then you have to go to them and say, all right, look, we kind of screwed up here. This isn't working for us. Mm-hmm. Let's reevaluate and move forward. And it's not that the team wasn't working well. It's not that you weren't profitable. You weren't happy with the direction everything had gone because it didn't meet that original vision. I love that you realized, like, we weren't communicating it well, so no one was buying into it. Mm-hmm. And now this whole thing is, it's off the rails, and who knows where this train is going. And if you don't know where your business is going, that's not a train I would want to be on. So I don't blame you. I think it's actually a really big power play to say, hold on, let's stop this thing and course correct here before we hurt a bunch of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because we're operations minded, right? Because that's kind of what we do, for us, it was very easy for us to make the pivot. It was easy for us to realize that this was no longer happening and why, and what could we do to fix it. We made the decision in about a 48-hour period. So we didn't think about this for a long time because we had all the data in front of us, right? We saw the numbers. We were able to look at how many meetings I was spending doing things that I probably didn't need to be doing because of the business that we were running. And so it was very easy for us to come to the conclusion that we had to stop this. And yeah, it was probably the worst 48 hours. And then it led into a weekend, which was not fun for us. But it was a very stressful and hard time. But I do believe that if we hadn't done it, we would have lost everything, our employees, our clients, everybody. And so then this way we were able to do it in a way that felt good for everybody. And so that definitely, I think, helped us kind of maneuver through it over the last few weeks, because this happened on March 1st. We're on the 20th, and we're not even 3 weeks past this. So it's still unfolding a little bit, but it seems to, at this point, be okay, which is good.
Mm-hmm. So how did obviously a company that's helping people automate their business is going to be using automation software. How did the software help you see what was going on? Like, what were the revelations that was giving you, as opposed to like this? I think there's personal stuff where you were like, this doesn't feel good, but then there's got to be,
Yeah.
there had to have been some kind of information within the business itself too, giving you feedback like this isn't working right, even though the numbers say there's X amount of dollars left. This isn't good, or I don't like the way this look. What was the feedback you were getting from within the automations that made you say, hold on?
Yeah, I think for us, it was we knew we had a roster of a bunch of clients that we were serving. And it came to the point where I was getting tapped out. And so we were able to see, well, we take on 3, 4 more clients. Let's map out what that looks like. What does that look like for that? And so instead of making the decision of, let's just keep going with it and see what happens, we were able to like forecast it. So if we sign on 4 new clients, that means you're completely tapped out, which means we need to hire somebody. And we were able to kind of walk through it operationally. We have all of our processes mapped out. So it's really easy for us to say, okay, if we sell 10 of these, how many people do we need to hire? What does that look like? How many invoices are we sending a month? Like what does all this look like? And so because we have it all documented, it's easy for us to very easy for us to make decisions on any front. Because instead of it living on how many clients do we have and what's that client's name and what are we doing for that client and who's doing that, we were able to just go in our project management software and see everything we had on our plate, see what activity I've been doing. So because we lay out every single task that we do, we're able to look, Jamie, what did you spend February doing? What were you doing? What were the tasks that you were doing in that month? And did that drive the business forward at all? Was that at all something that you should have been doing? And it was a no. It was a if you keep going this way, you're going to burn your team, and all of your clients out, because it's just not, you can't do this year after year after year. And so that's really how all of the tools kind of helped us, is we were able to track what I had been doing, how many meetings I was on, what those meetings, looked like, because we use Fathom, which we were kind of talking about, that it records our calls and all of that stuff. So I think it just helped us see the business in a light that instead of trying to figure out what we had going on, we knew what we had going on because it was all contained. So that was definitely a huge thing for us.
So it's giving you that 30,000-foot view when you can't necessarily step away from it. It sounds like you were able to look at the info a lot quicker than having to find the time to step back, assess it, and you would have just carried on running. I know contractors that do, right? It's, I got this going on. I'll work a night. Well, I'll work a weekend. I'll work nights and days in order to take on this extra project. And, I'll just hire somebody, and whether it works out or not, I'll figure that out 6 months down the road when I'm getting a call about the failure. And then I got to figure out how to schedule in redoing a floor. And then, did you really make any money, or are you now losing money? And they don't know. Yeah. And so it sounds like you're kind of in the same boat, but you had a lot of tools in place that were being used very well to help you make an informed decision a lot quicker, as opposed to, well, I've been doing this for 3 years and now I just feel like crap and I don't know what happened or where it went wrong. I can keep going, or I just, probably a lot of people are just like, screw it and shut it all down. And then they're calling up a bunch of employees and saying, sorry guys, you're all fired.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another thing that it helped us do is we were able to see that if we wanted to keep growing at this rate, what does that look like from a hiring standpoint? What does that look like from a training standpoint? What does that look like from all these different angles that you have to look at? So if I can no longer take any more clients personally under my belt, that means we have to hire another me. Which means, what does that look like salary wise? What does that look like now to our prices that we have to charge to make up for that salary? How many projects do they have to take a month to make up for that? And so for us, it was, we're not ready to run down that path. That's definitely not the path we want to go down. And if we want to keep growing this business, then that's where we have to go. And if that's not where we want to go, then we have to kind of burn the boats and kind of go back to ground zero. And so not only did it help us see what were we doing now, but also if we wanted to grow to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million company, how do we do that? And how do we work our way backwards? And so I think that's what's important about operations and automations and just really having everything documented is that you're able to look at this is my business plan and what does that mean? What does a business like that look like? How many employees? Do I need a warehouse? Like all these things
Mm-hmm.
that people I think fail to look at because we're so excited about this piece of our business and what the potential of it is. But what does that potential, what does that cause? What domino effect does that create in your business?
So when you're going into these businesses, it sounds like, now you've learned a valuable lesson from within your own, and it's not that you weren't doing it with your clients. You just kind of got off track with yourself because you were so caught up in growth. It sounds like you're really looking at what are their 5-year, 3-year, 1-year goals, and then what are your values, and now how do I apply your values to your goals to get you where you want to be?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. I think looking at where you're at right now is obviously important and we do that too, but it's also like, what does this look like a year from now and 5 years from now? And really seeing like helping them cast their vision because if they have their vision of something a year from now, but they haven't fully realized what that looks like business wise, then they're chasing after a dream that they don't really want. And so what our job is to, okay, you want this goal, but now let's look at what kind of business are you running at this point? You have 10 employees. This is what all their titles are. We're having to bring in this much revenue, which means we need to take in this many sales calls, and so it all kind of works together. And then you paint that picture and they're either like, yes, that's the business I want. Or they're like, oh man, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about needing 10 employees in the next year.
Mm-hmm.
I got to hire, train, manage, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it is funny. And I think that everybody on this call can probably relate to some extent. We're always the worst at doing for our business what we do for other businesses. Um,
Uh, yes, I agree. It's funny. What I find is that I forget where I've heard it, but you talk about what you need the most. Like if whatever you're struggling with is generally what the topics of what's going to be. And I've mentioned on the podcast before, I'm like, if you people go back and you listen to like quarters worth of episodes, there's probably generally a theme. And so you can look at like, what was Kyle struggling with at that time? Because there's probably there's,
yeah.
there's traits that are going to match up across episodes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to make myself feel better about the things that I go through in my business that I should have been able to solve for and I solve for all day for my clients. I told my husband, I was like, it's just because I feel like sometimes we're experts at things, right? We're really good at what we do and we can do that anytime for our business. We can do that anytime. We can solve for that anytime. And
Mm-hmm.
so for us, we just, oh, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. And we have obviously automations and all the things, but yeah, as far as I feel like I should have hired a fractional COO for my company. And that's something that my husband and I, a business partner, have talked about is I shouldn't have to do that for our business because it's too hard to really be in the crux of your own business and be able to look at it from that lens. And sometimes you need an outside
Mm-hmm.
perspective to like look at that kind of stuff. So we've kind of talked about like we should hire somebody to do for our business what we do for others. To just make sure somebody else is keeping our best interest. For us as business owners, we're like, yeah, we really want that. Does it make sense? Do you really want that? And sometimes it's hard to ask ourselves these questions because, we're human and we're emotional and we make decisions.
No,
So,
I agree. I agree. I think you get so caught up in the day to day, like you're saying, right? And so now, well, it's the old adage of the cobbler's kids has no shoes, and so I know plenty of tile people and hardwood people and carpet. You know, I had my upstairs flooring ripped out for a good 9 months, 6 months, 9 months before flooring went down. It might have been longer than that. I know that my wife wasn't happy that I started
I was
and
going to say, I'm sure
didn't
she
finish.
knows. I'm sure she remembers how long it
Oh, for
was.
sure, for sure. But it's a story that I've heard, right? Like the guy had, I know tile people with leaking showers in their house. Can they fix it? Sure. But do they have the ability to give up a week to do their own? No. And I think it was kind of the same thing for you. You're like, this isn't really going right. I don't have time for that though. I got to make this call and get these people straightened out. And that's a really good insight that you can hire somebody to help you focus on what you're good at, but they're going to be able to point it out to you and say, no, you really need to be implementing this right now. Let's take care of this and make your business stronger. And then you're going to free up more time so that you can go and focus on your clients better. Otherwise, you're going to get so distracted and hung up with, everything being on fire around you. And when you're putting out fires constantly, you don't have time for anything because you're always in catch-up mode.
Always in catch-up mode. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very true. Unfortunately, that's the way business is. And I think that I put a post up on LinkedIn because I was thinking about this, that everyone tells us that business is hard, but then when it's hard, we're like, what the heck? And I think it's comical because I'm like, you've never read a book that's like, being a business owner is easy. It's no big deal. Most businesses survive. It's actually the complete opposite. And so it's really taking those moments and just, learning and living through it, which I know we've talked about before too. So it's all good things. I love it. I love business.
Well, it's a growth journey. Like, you got to be it takes a very special type of person to become an entrepreneur to begin with and want to run a business, but then to do well at it, you truly have to embrace life. Just, it's not that it's not rewarding, but to quote my buddy Chris, you got to embrace the suck. And there's a lot of suck. Yeah. And that's okay, because the outcome on the other side has always been worth the pain of getting there, because it's easier. I guess the way I've always kind of described it is when I was building the installation company, I got to points where it felt like I was on almost to the peak of a mountain, but I was stuck on a treadmill, and you just had to sprint to keep up. And eventually you would get over it, and you were still just as busy as before, still doing everything, but then it felt like, oh, okay, I actually have control of this. I've learned how to function at this level. And you would kind of coast again. And then you would start feeling it pick up. And you're like, oh shoot, I'm going up the hill again. And you'd get to that peak. And it would be hell for a month or two, as you just wanted to rip your hair out and you're struggling to keep up and not fall down and have it all collapse underneath you. And then you would level up and you're like, oh, this is cool. I got this now. But then it's a cycle, because it's constantly growing and you're maturing and learning new skill sets. And I think it takes a really special person to embrace that kind of a journey and go through it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. And I can totally relate to that. There are times in my business where I'm like, man, I got this figured out. I'm good. And then you get to the next, and you're like, man, that's a big mountain up there. You start to, and it's good. But like you said, at that point, I always look back and say, okay, what are some other struggles? What's my most recent struggle that I went through? And I felt the exact same way. Although this seems a lot bigger of an issue and a problem or, challenge, I still felt the same way, because you grow. So you're able to take on more, and you just realize you make it through, and you make it through, and you keep making it through. And I've heard so many times, this is one thing that I stick on to most, is most business owners quit right before they succeed. Right before that. They say that most people just give up, they run out of gas. And I keep telling myself that every time we go through challenges and everything like that, it's just one step closer to that, whatever goal we have, as long as we keep working towards that, which, ultimately led us to do what we did. But I think that you come prepared, and you have to, remember that you're stronger than you really are. You've already been through a lot of crap, so just hang on to that.
Go watch some David Goggins if you're really struggling. He'll pump you up.
There you go.
That guy's an animal. No, but it's great advice, and I agree. I think a lot of people give up right before success because it's hard, and you've had 100 failures in a row, and so to try and swim across the pool in another lap, or throw the dart one more time, or take one more shot at the hoop, you may miss. It may be the one that you make. You might make the next 100 after missing the first 100. I don't know what's going to happen, but you have to put in that effort and to grow, learn, and start excelling. How has all of this really affected you? Now that you've scaled back, reevaluated, what has being able to look at what automation can do for companies, plus having clear set visions and goals and knowing they need to be communicated. What is like taking everything you've learned in the past, I don't know, probably really 6 months, but then within that, the past 3 weeks, where's your mindset now? And what does it look like for you? Like, what is the message and big takeaway?
Be patient with yourself. Honestly, that's probably my biggest one. I had a friend tell me while I was really in the thick of it. He was one person that I went to go talk to before we made any decisions. And he said, Jamie, this is all an experiment. Business, that's all it is. It's just an experiment. It's just us going out there, giving it our best. And sometimes it hits and sometimes you miss. And I have a hard time, and I think all entrepreneurs do. I think that's what makes us so good at what we do as entrepreneurs, is that we beat ourselves up about things, and we want things to be perfect. And we want to do right by people, and we want, and we want, and we want. And when something like that doesn't happen, we have a way of looking at ourselves and being like, you failure, you failed, you know, you're not a good business owner, all these bad things that we tell ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's all just an experiment. You have to be patient, because there's nobody, you haven't done this before. So you have to be patient in the fact that you're learning. And I think as long as I promise myself, as long as I walk away from learnings at every single hardship that I go through, then I win. And if I walk away at any time without a learning, then yeah, it's a regret, it's a loss. And so I think that for us is continuously learn, figure out where you went wrong, figure out how you'll do it better next time, and then promise yourself and vow for yourself to do that. But I think I'm just going to be more patient with myself, and just realize that I don't know it all. And that's okay. It's okay to admit that. And it's okay to lean on help from others. Mm-hmm. I think is really big.
I think that's beautiful. Be patient, which I think everyone needs to be more patient, but then to recognize, one of my buddies, he was like, I don't know why people complain about, you know, when problems occur on like a construction website. He was like, that's what you do. You're a business owner. You solve problems. And yet we get frustrated by them, right? Like, we signed up to solve somebody's problem knowing that other problems would arise. And then we sit there and we complain and, well, that sucks. This messes up my whole day, my week, shut up, solve the problem. Like, the sooner you get to solving the problem, the sooner you're going to be able to move forward. And so kind of by being able to be patient, plus understand that you're just there to solve problems and they're going to continuously arise, you can be a way better, more just a higher caliber business owner at that point, because to have that understanding and mentality is going to make things so much easier.
Yeah. I agree. I think that, you know, we all have a lot to learn, and I don't think you never stop learning. I don't think we ever do. I know we don't. I know we don't stop learning. And so I think it's a hard thing to wrap your head around, right? Like, I don't want to keep learning the rest of my life. Like, can I just be all knowing and just not have to do all this learning all the time and all this growth all the time? But I think there's a lot of beauty in it too. And when you sit down and really think about, you know, all the lessons learned, and there's no good times if there's no bad times. And that's what I try to remind myself, is you have to go through this suck, because you just don't know good until you know bad. So, it's life. Life is a journey, and being an entrepreneur really magnifies a lot of feelings, I think.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think it definitely does, because it gets so, it just gets amplified by everything going on, because you're trying to maintain this thing, and then you have relationships, and maybe you have children, and that it starts compounding, I think, or maybe it doesn't, and we just think it does. But once again, I think that goes, you know, be patient and figure out how to solve the problem, as opposed to letting it get to you. And that's really a lesson that I think contractors can find very valuable. I think anyone can find that valuable, but just, I know that going into a project, you don't know when you start taking something out if the subfloor is going to have to be all rotted out and get replaced. And then you're like, well, I don't have time for this in my schedule. Like, stop, assess, call a buddy, make it happen, right? Just find a way to solve the problem, as opposed to getting hung up on it and complaining about it for 30 minutes, because now you've wasted 30 minutes doing nothing.
Yeah.
Just get moving
everything's
forward.
Figure outable, right? I've heard somebody say that every single thing is figure outable. And if we can keep that and just, just keep that mindset and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is a problem, and I'm not the first one to deal with this problem. Right? There's hundreds of thousands of people that have probably dealt with the exact problems I'm dealing with.
There you go.
And so it's relying on that and remembering that and remembering they got through it, remembering you got through everything you've been through at this point, and just asking for help. I think that over the last 4 years I've been a business owner, I paid for help. I've bought coaches, I've had all these things, but I've never just called a friend and asked for help on a business issue. And I did that on this issue because I
Mm-hmm.
was so, what do I do? And I can't do this anymore by myself. I need help. And I'll never go back. I'll never go back. You got to find your people. You got to find your people you can call
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, this happened. I don't need you to tell me you're sorry or that you feel, I just need someone to walk me through how to solve this. Ask me the right questions so I can solve this problem. And people have great ideas. I think, a lot of times you feel like, well, there's no way they'll know anything I don't know. No, there's a lot of people that know a lot more than you do about a situation, especially if it's your first time going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think sometimes we feel ashamed to like admit things that are going wrong in our business, which is a lot of where I felt. But the second I opened up to three different business owners about it before and after we made the decision, and every single one of them had dealt with and gone through the same exact thing we've been through. And had I not known that, I probably would have, felt worse for longer and all these things. But knowing that it's not necessarily a natural progression that everybody goes through, but it is a step in some of our chapter and some of our, journey, and that's okay. So
No, I totally agree. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know who knows what. And until you open up, like you may call a friend and want their opinion, and they're going to say, you know what? I'm not good on this, but I know the expert. And that's what I love about networking and growing it is you don't know who knows who, and you may get connected. I randomly met a lady at the trade show at the beginning of February, and she was like, oh, you do a podcast? You should interview this guy. I'm a PR representative for him. And I was like, okay, sure. And I've done the interview. It was great. But now here I am talking to a buddy of mine about his company and how, honestly, there's some really great creative people that make an amazing product, but they suck at marketing. And I was like, call this lady. Like, I randomly met her. Maybe it's a good fit. Maybe it's not. Call her up, see what she does. And then I was like, look, even be like bold and say, can I get 2 recommendations from you from other people in this space that you would work with? Right. And I was like, if she's truly a professional, she will gladly tell you who her good competition is. So that phone call has been placed and they're going to connect. But I was just like, you don't know when something's going to come up and who knows who and where the information is going to get passed. And I think that's a super huge part of owning a business is being able to put yourself out there with people and have that open conversation with them, as opposed to we internalize a lot of things. And so you think you solve the problem, but you process things so much differently internally than when you externalize it. And a lot of times I've noticed business owners don't even need the answer anymore once they externalize it, but they'll take it and they're happy to hear, but you've usually solved it yourself just because you've processed it differently.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I think talking out loud is definitely helpful. It never makes me feel good to keep things inside. And so thankfully my husband's my business owner, so I'm able to, or my business partner, so I'm able to like, bounce things off of him as much as I want. But even with him and we need an outside source, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
can't just rely on each other because we're so into it with each other. Like we're both too into the business. And so, yeah, I think it's important that to go to networking groups and to just find your core people that will be honest with you, not just tell you what you want to hear too, which could be an issue if you find the wrong people.
Well, yes, but no. I think you got to get challenged, and you might hear stuff you don't want to hear. You might hear things you need to hear, and you might hear really bad information. But at that point, that's part of the growth journey. You got to learn how to decipher through the bullshit and see who knows.
There's a lot of bullshit.
Yes, there definitely is. There's a lot of bad advice out there, and there's a lot of great advice. You just need to be able to filter through who do you trust, who don't you trust, and sometimes you're going to get burned, and that's okay, because what can you take away from it? How much? I think you'll learn faster through failures, and well, I don't even want to say failures. You'll learn faster through mistakes than you will through successes, because if everything's going right, it doesn't force you to evaluate and change anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people this all the time. We're really lucky to live in the day and age that we live in. There's podcasts galore and people to listen to on different business topics. And so that's a lot what we do too. Like we've talked about utilizing technology.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here we are, like utilize what's out there in this world, because we have more information being poured onto us, which is a good and bad thing, but take the good information, because we can learn a lot faster than we've ever been able to. And so that's something I rely on too, is I watch a lot of podcasts and just listen to the people that have paved the way for all of us entrepreneurs to be successful. And we don't always take their advice or listen to what they're saying, because we don't feel like it applies to us, and then we later find out it did. But it's still good to just hear other people's challenges and realize you're not alone. There's nothing you're going through that somebody hasn't experienced before.
I agree. We'll kind of bring this full circle. I think some people are probably wondering, why are you going to call this identifying, bottlenecks in your business? And then you're going to talk about like her personal journey struggling. Well, she was her own bottleneck, right? Like that's, I guess that's the way to kind of put it, is you guys created something where you became your own bottleneck, despite the fact that you try and identify them in other companies. And you've since figured that out, and you've had a great journey. So to kind of bring this full circle, what would be like your top 3 to 5 bottlenecks that you see through the companies you've worked with? And where do they generally, like, it's just something that's, you go in and it's repeatable. Like you just automatically know, like it's time management, or it's this, or like, what are the top 3 to 5 that you see constantly?
Well, I would say number one is a person. It's usually a person in the business that's a bottleneck. They're not efficient. They're not doing what they need to be doing. They're not meeting deadlines. That's typically it. Number 2, I would say, is sending invoices and contracts. Contracts and invoices need to be sent out the day somebody tells you they want to purchase, because every day that goes by, you're getting away from that. So I'd say sending invoices and stuff. A lot of times people lose a lot of business because they're not doing that efficiently. Oh my gosh, there are just so many bottlenecks people can have. I would say different types of people that it could be is usually the owner of the business, especially in small businesses. They typically will act as the bottleneck in their business, and they don't know it. So if we can remove them from a lot of those things, that typically will help, whether it be a hire or an automation or some type of way to kind of get a lot off their plate. Hiring new people. I think that's a big one. I think that people are really good about bringing in new sales, but not really good about bringing in the new hire pipeline as they make these sales. So a big bottleneck is trying to put the right people in the right seats. And I know for the work that you guys all do is tough on that right now. I know it's really hard to find people to work and that stuff. So that's a really big bottleneck. You can find the business, but can't find people to deliver on it. That's a problem. I don't know how many I just named, maybe 4.
That's great. No, I love that. And I agree, right? As owners, we have to learn to get out of our own way. I think that's why that's a valuable part of our conversation, is you admit it. Like, I was in my own way. I screwed this up. We got it wrong. Let's reevaluate. Let's do it. And I know a couple other business owners in this field that have had to do that. And I've come to realize that I did that. I made a lot of bad decisions in how I was running my installation company, and they need to be corrected if I go and try and start moving that forward and scaling it again, because the lessons learned in how to manage it and the people and advertise it are valuable. And I can step back now, having not focused on it for a minute, and say, okay, you were really good, but it can be a lot better and run just on a whole different level, and it would take less effort. And I think that's, once again, identifying these softwares to be able to put in place to help you do that frees up your time to mentally do some of the higher level skills, instead of being focused on these tasks that are $15 or $20 an hour jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it on the head. That's exactly right. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see if and when you start growing that.
Oh, I got to put it in the podcast. That's what I really need to do. I got to put all these lessons into the show.
Yeah. Hey, this is a great place. You can do a lot of automations with a business like this. So we've helped a couple of people. So definitely I'll send you some recommendations on some stuff that I think you could use.
Yeah, no, I love it. The problem is one of the pieces of software I need is illegal on all of the, social media platforms, because I need to be able to spam things out, and you're not allowed to do that. So I'll figure something out one day. But is there anything we didn't hit on that you think we need to hit on, or any last minute advice? You've given out some really, really great nuggets here.
Oh, I appreciate you. No, I would just shout out to all you business owners. I know it's tough, but keep going, and I feel you, and find your community and just keep going, because I know there's a reward at the end of the day, and we're going to get there. So just keep chugging.
Awesome. If everyone wants to find you, where can they find you?
Best place is our website. We have everything on there. If you're on LinkedIn, you can look me up, Jamie Hawk. If you're on our website, it's www.altitudeops.com. There you'll be able to see pictures about us, services we offer, all the things. Just get to know us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Jamie. I very much appreciate you and your insights, and sharing your valuable time with us, and then, helping us be able to look at what we can do to try and find some simple bottlenecks and put processes in place, and then know that sometimes it's us and we got to get out of our way. We got to reevaluate and step back and actually look at what we're trying to build to get it right. And so thank you for sharing a very personal story that I'm sure, like you said, it's still unfolding, but you're not upset about it. You're proud of the journey, and you've adjusted well with it, which is, a sign of maturity that you have. And I know that you're going to be able to continue to move your business forward in a positive direction for you and past clients and future clients.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. I got a quick word, folks. I hope you all attended the International Surface event this year in Las Vegas. The event was packed with wall-to-wall product. Tice has released the Tice 2023 Product and Trends Lookbook, packed with the newest products hitting the market this year, capturing a snapshot of what everyone was able to discover on site. Make sure to access the lookbook in the show notes. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us this week. I appreciate you tuning in. Head over to flooracademypod.com. Check out the shop. There's a link to the Patreon. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping us, continue to put this message out. The latest number on YouTube's like 170 subscribers, so 830 more to go to get to 1,000 and be able to even be close to being able to monetize. So look, I looked the other day. There have been, between Spotify and Apple Podcasts, there's been over 1,000 unique devices that have accessed the podcast. So I know you're out there. I know I got 1,000 people. Head over to the YouTube. Help me out, okay? We need to grow by 100 the next time I put an episode out. I challenge you, right? I need to be at 270. Help me out, folks. I very much appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.